everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I am super excited for this conversation around people-based targeting. It's a topic we're covering with clients that we work with more and more frequently these days, of course, given the updates to data privacy policies. I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Brittany Lang. I'm our Director of Client Services here at Direct Agents, and I will let Joe and Matt speak for themselves.
Hi, I'm Joe Belafonte, and I'm the Director of Analytics at Direct Agents.
Hi, my name is Matt Parisi. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Tealium, makers of the Customer Data Hub.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it, guys, and start with why people-based targeting and what we mean when we say that. So traditionally, targeting, as most marketers know, has been done with a very cookie-based method, following users around the internet, providing kind of a limited view of that user's data and what their real needs are. And now with the increased data privacy regulations going into effect and users themselves becoming more and more concerned with how their online data is being used, that's just rapidly becoming an outdated way of targeting our marketing campaigns. So enter first-party or people-based targeting. So Joe, I guess I'll kick it to you for this first question, and just for brands who are new to the topic or who just don't know where to begin, what are some things that we should consider when we're thinking about switching from this cookie-based world into a more first-party data system?
Yeah, I think the first and most important step needed for taking a people-based targeting approach is to really make sure that your tracking is in a place that allows you to collect the first and zero-party data needed to gain the types of insights needed to personalize and provide relevant experiences for your user base. For those of you who don't know, zero-party data, it's a subset of first-party data that's comprised mostly of information that users voluntarily share about themselves in order to obtain a better, more personalized experience. This can be anything from preferences, age, gender, and so on. But with that and this level of data collection of this robust first-party data set, you can really begin to imagine the vast scope of the data. It seems to be endless. And that really has its own set of challenges. And it's why it's really important for brands to not just go out and collect every single data point that there possibly is. Really have a purpose behind it, map out each data point, define what it is, where it's coming from, and why it's important and useful to be collected. And this is really going to help keep your data environment in a clean and actionable state.
And then I guess, Matt, from a Tealium perspective, what is the first kind of foray that you usually take with brands that continue?
Sure, yeah. That's actually one of the reasons why I was so excited to talk to you guys. Rarely do we ever see somebody leading with data collection strategy. You know, data collection is something that I think a lot of marketers in particular isn't something that you necessarily think about from the very beginning. You think about kind of the end result, like what you're going to do with that data versus how am I going to get it and then get it all in the same place in order to do something with it further. So I'm really excited that we're talking about data collection. I think data collection is kind of the foundation of everything that happens after it. And I think we're at a pivotal point in kind of the evolution of technology where data collection is going to kind of take its rightful place inside of people's marketing strategies. So where we always start, all of our deployments start with what we call the data layer strategy. So basically what we'll do is we'll identify specific use cases that are to be achieved with our technology, and then we'll work backwards from that use case to the data points that need to be available to make that use case a reality. So step one of any Tealium engagement is always defining what data you need, you know, just the data points that you need, making sure that all the sources of data that might lead to that data point are speaking the same language. So, you know, kind of mapping all the different ways that different technologies might refer to the same thing and having kind of a canonical list of what our data is called. And then once you kind of have your data dictionary in place of sorts, that makes all of the downstream uses of that data a lot easier. one thing I would note in this at this point is basically that when you define your data collection strategy, ideally that's in the nomenclature of your own business. It's going to drive so much usage of the data because the business users are going to understand what that data point is versus, the technology's data name, which might be, these abstract SPROP V, IDs that don't really necessarily mean a lot to a business user. So those are the things that I would kind of highlight is that, whenever you're thinking about customer experience, start with that data, define it, standardize it, and then that's going to make it easier to use on the other end. And hopefully you have a way to define that data in the terms of your own business.
I totally agree. And it's funny because we say people first and we really mean people first, right? So often the trap that brands fall into is that they run all of this media and then try to backtrack into their data and into their targeting. And if you don't start with that layer, the media really isn't that useful. What can you glean from your marketing efforts if you don't know who you're marketing to? Mm-hmm. Which I guess, Joe, do you have any insights you want to share about how to actually use these audiences once we've kind of gotten a base layer understanding of who the audience really is?
Yeah, I'd say so. You have all your data set up, you're tracking everything, you're collecting it. So the next step is really to begin to analyze the data set and really make use of it, right? So we always recommend brands start small and ramp up, especially if this is your first time kind of going into this kind of user level data environment. So what we typically recommend is start with smart rule-based goals and audiences so you can start to really understand the differences between users who convert versus don't convert. These could be rules such as people who are on a page for X amount of time, pages viewed, multiple device types used, and so on. And this will really help you get your audience created and up and running quickly and allow you to learn and experience the gains from really employing this type of people-based marketing strategy. And as you progress and get a bit more comfortable with your data sets that you're utilizing, you can begin to advance your analysis through the next level where you're processing data in real time and scoring your users based upon actions they've taken to provide more predictive and actionable types of insights and experiences for your users. You could be looking at the likelihood of a user to convert in 7 days, their churn risk, projected lifetime value. All this is going to allow you to better anticipate the user needs and address them in a more efficient manner. But really the kind of key takeaway here is start small, see the impact of it, learn from it, get buy-in from the rest of the organization, and continue to mature your process and get more advanced as you get into the more kind of predictive realm of your audience analysis.
Matt, do you want to add anything there?
So yeah, doing things like machine learning is I would say kind of the next great frontier of adding like transformative value to customer experience. I think we've gotten to a point where the volume of customer data coming at marketers, I know back in the day when I was working at marketing agencies, we would, there's all this talk about being data driven. We need to get data. We need more about customer data. I think marketers have gotten their wish and probably a little bit more than they would have ever wanted. And now it's kind of the case where we've got so much data. We need more ways of figuring out what data is going to make a difference at the end of the day in the customer experience and how that relates to the bottom line ultimately. So I, again, I would go back to kind of the importance of data collection for, things like predictive insights and machine learning. If the computer kind of can't understand the data, like if the data isn't well defined, well specified, well specced out, the insights that come from those predictive insights from that machine learning on that customer data are not going to be as good as they could otherwise be. So, when we talk about kind of the tip of the maturity pyramid with customer data, that's where I'd put machine learning and predictive experiences. It all still comes down to that foundation of getting customer, kind of getting the data collection right at the bottom. And once you have that data collection right, that middle layer of coming up with audiences, I think is something that is very powerful. So the more you can consistently manage the same audience between many different technologies, the better off your customer experience is going to be, and probably the better off your actual employee experience is going to be trying to serve the customer, because nobody within a company really likes the task of data wrangling and going around and trying to clean up data and get data ready to go. So, basically I would re-emphasize data collection. And then I would also say that, the more you have a system where you're able to take your audiences across your tech stack, the better. And I would say that like virtually every execution system is going to say that they can do that, but you have to look at, was this system really built to produce the best possible customer data set? Or was it produced to, serve media, or, serve an email, send emails, or personalize a website could be a good example. So when you're looking at your data foundation, like, pick a tool that's focused on the data, and then that tool can get the data to all your various execution channels.
I would maybe argue that Joe is somebody who really likes getting in there and cleaning up data.
Yeah.
Talking about with our clients is that data is only useful if it's clean and if it's organized in a way that you can understand what it's telling you. So I guess I'll kick it back to Joe for another audience question. So once you have this base layer in your house, I guess, that we're building, and the first layer is the data layer, literally the data layer. And then you're going to push that data into all of your advertising platforms where it's going to then ultimately reach your consumers. How do you kind of unify the message and make sure that when you hit somebody on Facebook or on a display ad or wherever it is that you're finding these users, how do you make sure that you're hitting them with the messaging that matters to them at the time that matters to them based on the data that you already have in that first collection process?
Yeah, so traditionally there's two main ways to do this. Traditionally, CRM uploads have been kind of the go-to default way that brands are creating their audience segments and sharing them with the marketing platforms. However, those are quickly becoming pretty outdated, because unless you're able to upload those nearly every hour in real time and update your audiences, you're bound to have audiences that are out of date, and you're going to be targeting people with messaging and creative that just doesn't apply to them anymore. So that's where a CDP really comes in as the preferred method that's really quickly becoming the industry standard as a way to maintain your audience groups in real time and sync them with your marketing platforms. And this really allows brands to provide that personalized, timely, and relevant experience to their user base. Tealium has a great product called Audience Stream that enables this type of process and is really a leader in the space with it. And really by utilizing this method of audience creation, pushing them out to the marketing platforms in real time, it's going to allow you to get that one-to-one messaging with your audience groups. We all have been in that situation where, kind of going back to the old traditional way, where you would have a user comes to a site, comes to a brand, looks at 3 products. Maybe they're looking at those products across multiple devices. But then what happens is, because it's cookie based, you start getting remarketed on your different devices to the products that you've been looking at. But let's say you ended up purchasing the products on your desktop. But you also looked at them on your mobile device. Because it's cookie-based, you have limitations there, right? You'd be able to say, okay, let's exclude all users who have converted from this audience group. Okay, they're excluded. And now what's happening is you're not getting those ads anymore on your desktop, but you're going to continue to get them on your mobile device there. So what Tealium really does is, by taking this kind of holistic, people-based approach and actually marketing towards people and not the cookies that are placed on their browsers, you're able to really kind of mitigate those types of poor user experiences and make sure that the people are getting what is most relevant to them. So even if I do look at a product on 2 different devices and I end up purchasing on another one, we'll be able to understand that and communicate that to the marketing platform, so you're not getting remarketed again and again for a product that you've already purchased at the end of the day. And in addition to this, it's really going to open up the possibility, not only from a remarketing standpoint, but also from a prospecting standpoint, with creating similar audiences and lookalike audiences in your various platforms that are high quality and based upon this first-party deterministic user data that you have now access to. And the impact of that is really profound. And we see that across both prospecting and remarketing campaigns, where we actually have some examples in the chart to the right here on the screen, where you can see the vast impact that these types of first-party data-driven audiences have when you're really marketing to people with what's relevant and timely to them, where you see the conversion rates, the CPAs, the ROAS, all having significant improvements across the board. And in the specific example here with this e-commerce client that we have at the top here, they onboard with the CDP ecosystem, and were typically prior to that focused more so on cookie-based retargeting and marketing, as well as outdated CRM uploads. And by transitioning to this people-based strategy, what they're able to do is not only have these vast increases in terms of their performance, but they're able to recoup their year one tech cost for their CDP in less than a month of activating it. So really profound gains and impact across the board there, and it's something that really helps separate you from the competition and provide that additional value to your clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the more we talk about data, the more the brands are like kind of getting on board as this being the next frontier. And even if you're a brand whose marketing campaigns are doing really well and you're hitting all of your KPIs, the question becomes, well, how do we scale this? What's the next step? What's the path forward? And that path forward really is, you can only go so far with the audience you have now, with the Facebook prospecting tools that you have available. So you really need to hone in on your own users and find those people specifically. And that's how you need to achieve that scale. I think since you talked about e-commerce a little bit, and we are moving into the holiday season, Prime Day is next week, and then in a month-ish, we're hitting Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So how can brands who are either using a CDP now or are preparing to start onboarding a CDP maybe in Q1, what can they do now to think about their user data collection and use in the next couple of months where we're going to see a lot of online activity?
Yeah, I'd say now's a good time to start thinking about a CDP if you don't already have one in place. But in the short, near term, start assessing your current data ecosystem. Both Matt and I were talking about in the beginning there how important it is to really have that data layer in place and make sure that you have the data available to you to make the type of impactful decisions and marketing strategies that this kind of data ecosystem and data processing strategy makes available, right? So really start looking at from a critical point of view of what data do you want to start collecting, and look to expand your current ecosystem now going into the holiday season, so you can begin to collect that data and then begin to use that for future years to come. Because if you let the holidays go by before you put these kind of tracking enhancements and expansions into place, you're going to miss out on collecting that data during this crucial time of year of Q4. So we really recommend kind of get that kick-started today and start collecting that data as soon as possible, because it's going to, if you can't utilize it this year, at least you have it for the years to come. Then you can really understand your user base, what they're doing, how to better reach them next year. I'd also say start thinking about what audience segments and types you want to create and the strategy that you're going to be putting behind them, because it's not just, oh, let's analyze the data and develop our audience groups and start targeting them. The idea is that this is a two-pronged approach, where not only are you analyzing your data and creating the audiences, but you're also putting a strategic marketing strategy behind each one, because each audience group should by definition be unique, and you want to speak to them in a very unique and personalized manner. So having the strategy around it, as well as a measurement plan in place so you can fully understand the impact that these audience targets, messaging, and creative strategies are having on your overall performance. It's important to keep in mind that this is a very iterative process that is going to require continuous learning and refinements. Very rarely will you find that the first audience group that you create and targeting strategy and methodologies behind it all is going to be the best version of it the first time around. You're going to need derivative iterations of it and continue to expand and enhance your methodologies.
Matt, over to you. I guess since we're kind of talking about
Sure.
get going with this, if you're a brand that's new to the conversation or just
Sure. Yeah. So a couple of things come to mind when the holidays come up. So number one, the holidays are already a time where like every year we're getting a little bit more, as far as, kind of in-store or physical shopping, moving online. And then we had kind of a little thing called COVID happen earlier this year in March that may have accelerated digital transformation. I think I've seen any, stats out there from anywhere from like 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months to, even 6 years of digital transformation in 6 months. But all of that is to say that your online channels might get more volume this year. And if you're a brand who has physical brick and mortar stores that are closed, that is a risky situation, right? So I would just kind of take a look at your infrastructure, make sure you've got the data volume set up. Any amount of downtime in this scenario, in this environment, can lead to major losses, right? Because of the fact that you don't have brick and mortar to kind of pick up the pieces if your website breaks or something like that. So I would say just make sure that you have enough volume, enough infrastructure in place on the apps that you use to engage your customers. That's the first thing. Second thing is we talk a lot about the cookie apocalypse coming, right? So third-party cookies aren't going to be available for that long, and these cookies are things that are used to measure results, but also to target and engage customers. So if we think about kind of the changes that are coming out soon, we've talked about some of them here, but I believe 2022 is when Chrome is going to kind of turn off the availability of third-party cookies. So we've got 2 holiday periods left of getting this first-party data, right? That you have less restrictions in place. So that makes these 2 holiday periods really important for knowing your customer, building up your first-party data foundation so that when that third-party switch is turned off, you're not, starting from scratch and just kind of stuck without anything to do for a little while. So that's the second thing that I would kind of emphasize. The third thing is I would double down on kind of what Joe mentioned around audiences. Think about the audiences and what you'll be, engaging those audiences with, because there's probably some data that you might not be tracking today that you're going to need to power that program. So you want to identify that right now so that you can make sure your data collection strategy reflects the need to engage that audience. And I think that, between kind of those 3 things, making sure that, your infrastructure is ready, look at the volume that you have, like contracted with vendors, and make sure that, if there's a big surge, you have enough. But then like thinking about your audiences that you're going to want to run. These audiences are probably going to start a little bit earlier too. A lot of people are talking about Prime Day kind of being the beginning of the holiday e-commerce experience here, which is coming up in October, I believe. It's not, can't really wait until Black Friday anymore. So starting earlier, making sure your infrastructure is ready, and scoping out those audiences that you're going to want to engage.
Yeah, I like your point about the cookie apocalypse. Whenever comes, you don't want to be starting from zero with your user data. You want to have these next 2 years worth of data collection that you've already got in your pocket, so you can compete with your marketing efforts. I think that's probably a good place to leave it. I want to thank both Matt and Joe for joining today. And I want everybody to stick around for our next session starting in just a couple of minutes on leadership and culture.